FBB is a lineage. A lineage is lineal descent from an ancestor, ancestral pedigree. As a result, FBB are descendants of the African and Baradanax, the Aboriginal blacks who built the United Kingdom. Yes, yes. Dr. Charles has made it clear that we should call the black people, we should call the black people in in Britain, we should call you guys Baradanax. No more calling you, in a sense, some other outsider. You're not an outsider. You're foundational black Britons. That's your country. You created it. Number one, FBB, Variant African descent, beginning with the Africans who crossed at Gibraltar 44,000 years ago. Yes, yes. The first settlers of the United Kingdom crossed the Straits of Gibraltar 44,000 years ago. They went into Iberia and thence to the UK. FBB are descendants of the Egyptians and Phoenicians who came to the UK to exploit the metals and other minerals at the 1600 BC. Yes, your ancestors are Egyptians and Phoenicians. Number three, FBB are descendants of mainland blacks, including the Moors, the Danes. Number four, FBB, and this is something you don't want to believe this, and you may not believe it, but we're going to show you this over the upcoming years. FBB is root of the British architecture, agriculture, religion, and science. And number five, Oliver Cromwell exiled hundreds of thousands of FBB to the Caribbean as chattel slaves.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't send these black people to the Caribbean as indentured servants. He sent these black people to the Caribbean as chattel slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Oliver Cromwell exiled hundreds of thousands of FBB to Caribbean as chattel slaves, who are now returning back home to the UK. Yes, yes, yes. You, FBB, who have been born in Britain, you're not outsiders, you're not settlers, you're not immigrants. You're coming back home. And what does Sister Shanice say? What does she say? She makes it clear. If you build a house, no matter if somebody, in a sense, steals your house, it's still your house.
That's right.
If you make a pair of shoes and you wear those shoes and they steal those shoes, those are still your shoes.
Okay.
The most important thing you have to remember is that British history is the history of the Baradanax.
Mm-hmm.
The Baradanax are members of the FBB lineage. Lineage. History of the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Whites want you to believe that the only black people in Britain was a bunch of musicians. Look at that picture over there on the left-hand side. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that the black people who came to Britain, the Baradanax, oh, these black people, oh, they came as slaves. They were musicians. And you see that white guy in the back, oh, he's the one leading you. No, that's a lie. The Baradanax were not just musicians. The Baradanax were not slaves. The Baradanax, it was their country. The UK was their country. The Anglos, the Saxons, they're all settlers. They're all settlers. That's your land. In this lecture, we discussed the history of the Celts and the Vikings. Look over there on the right-hand side. These are some of the pictures, yes, some of the pictures of the first Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
But look down there where we see the Russian reconstructions. They show their African character. But then if you notice the American version tries to make them look Caucasian. Yes, they taught you a false history. They taught you a fake history so that they can have a place in history. Davis and Thurman and Crania Britannica, they note the first blacks in the British Isles were small size. They represented the pygmies, who we call Twa and Anu. Davis and Thurman and Crania Britannica said the Celtic people were short and dark. They noted that Scotland was full of these little dark and curly-haired people. Yes, curly hair. In America, we call it nappy hair. But this is what they wrote. The Celts were originally black people. The Forest in 405 BC claimed that the Celts were blacks and Ethiopians, according to William and Robert Chambers in Chambers Information for People, Volume 2, London, Edinburgh, 1884, page 66. J. Rogers in Sex and Race, Volume 1, page 196, said the Celts continued to be recognized as blacks by Tacitus, who wrote about black Celts and Picts. You're wondering, I know you're saying, why is Dr. Winters putting on here references? I'll tell you why. Because many of the people out there, especially those trolls in the chat, they don't want to believe it. So I want to show the receipts right now. The Celts on the mainland of Europe were called Iberians or Silures. Though the original Celts were black, over time their name was stolen by Caucasian Europeans. Yes, just like Sister Janice was telling you how they try to steal your names today, how they've stolen much of our history. That's what they do. That's what they do. The European, the Caucasian, he steals history. But he pretends that it's black people who steal history. No. He pretends that it's Baradanax who steal history. No. He's a historian thief. Father O'Grony has discussed the history of the Celts. He makes it clear that the original Celts were the Iberians. Yes, as I told you, black people usually come up from the Gibraltar. They cross into Iberia, then they expand across Europe, and eventually they make it to the British Isles. A forest of Kyme, writing in 340 BC, wrote, and I'm going to quote, next is the land called Celtica, as far as the sea, lying off Sardinia, the greatest people, ethnos, in the west, where the Indians occupy almost all the land toward the east, and toward the south, the Ethiopians, the black faces lying near the south wind, and the Celts are from the west, went up to the summer sunset, and the Scythians that to the north. So the Indians live between the summer and winter sunrise. The Celts the opposite, between the equinox and the summer sunset. Legend has it. So the peoples are four, equal in the crowd and number of their inhabitants. That of the Ethiopians, the Scythians, has the most desert land because of the fiery parts of one and the watery parts of the other. The Celts use Greek customs since they are familiar with Greece in receiving travelers. They conduct their assemblies with music and eager for it as a taming influence. Yes, we love that music, but there is a so-called extreme north pillar, which is very tall, rising on a headband of the wavy tall sea. In the places near the pillar live those who end up as last of the Celts, the Anethians, and the last of the Istrians, who reach down into the Adriatic. They say the latter Danube receives its sources of the flow from here, I quote, look. Today these areas are full of what we call Caucasian people, but it wasn't always like that. They have stolen our history. They taught you a lie to make you feel you're inferior, to make you feel you can't accomplish nothing, but it's a lie. The Iberians were probably conquered by the Ligurians.